Oh, caught John mid-yawn. Producer Caden caught John mid-yawn. We are back with another episode of Cross Chop. Sorry for the last few days not being able to get to another episode, but hey, some things have been happening. It's been busy. It's been a busy few days. Excited to dive into it, John. And get into anything on the final non-NFL weekend of the year?
Nah, nothing. Got in no trouble. We're just doing some cleaning up. We're about to get our garage renovated, so had to do a big cleaning in there, moving out everything. So that was a pain, but I think it was the last really hot weekend of the summer, quote unquote, down here in NorCal. So feeling good about that. It was raining this morning and almost forgot what rain felt like. So coming off that, it's a good day. It's a good day. Really excited for Thursday. It's going to either be really fun or really sad. We'll see.
Yeah, the lack of rain in California, you never really notice it until you get out. And I had not seen rain since like late May because it didn't rain in June when I was in Texas, and then going to Oxnard, it didn't rain the entire time I was out there. So the first time I saw rain was when I was flying my U-Haul down Sam Rayburn Tollway to get to the Star for the press conference right after Micah Parsons got traded. And I was like, hey, what's going on? It's raining right now. This is the worst time. This is a bad time.
Hell of a time.
But there was some other news we're going to get into first. Daron Bland. We're going to start off with that. The fifth-round corner out of Fresno State, drafted in 2022. Heading into the final year of his deal, gets a 4-year extension with the Cowboys. 4 years, $92 million. And if you look at the structure of the contract, a lot of this guaranteed money is on the front end of the deal. It's actually, in all intents and purposes, a pretty team-friendly deal because if you look at how it is structured, again, the guarantees in the first couple of years, and it allows for some more freedom on the back end for the Cowboys if they so choose. But, John, just your overall thoughts on Daron Bland getting done before the season starts.
Yeah, super happy for the local boy. You know, he's from down around here, especially down where I was born in Galt. He's over in the Tracy Modesto area. Really happy to see him succeed, and coming out as a fifth-round pick, able to earn this type of extension is fantastic, and I think he's a player that deserves it. He has the outside-inside flexibility. He plays the run well. We've seen what he can do as a playmaker. He's a stalwart. I think he's someone who he's a starting cornerback at multiple spots, and he's going to be good for the next, half decade to a decade. I really like his temperament. I really like almost everything about him. The only thing that worries you is the injury history with the coming off the knee and everything. So, I think this was a good move. When you trade someone like Micah and you get that kind of cap space, you have to use it effectively. And this was a good start by the Cowboys for sure, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I think you call back to the 2023 season, and obviously it was fantastic. I mean, the record-setting pick sixes, leading the NFL in interceptions, first-team All-Pro. It's what you ask for from an elite corner, much less a fifth-round pick. And he has stepped into multiple roles and has filled multiple needs throughout his 3 years in Dallas. And even though he did miss those first 10, 11 games last year with the foot fracture, I felt like when he came back, granted the ball hawk. Or the ball production was not necessarily there, but it wasn't like he was giving up big plays. I felt like his true corner skills last year were improved despite not having the ball production. Did you see the same thing, John?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think he's someone who, in that pick six season, what got overlooked a little bit by a lot of Cowboys fans is that he was getting beat still quite a bit. And that was a reason why quarterbacks continued to target him, and he had so many opportunities to create so many big plays and big pick sixes and all of that and all of that stuff is because he was still getting beaten. Quarterbacks, despite the downside of the potential to get picked, they were still having some success over there throwing his way. But I think last season he took a good step in staying stickier in his coverage. And when look at all the best corners in the NFL in the modern day, the best ones don't have high interception totals because they're not getting targeted that often, or they're only getting targeted in situations where it's really hard to get interceptions, and in passing situations where it's hard, and so it's the fact. I don't look at his interception totals rescinding as he goes as an indication that he's not playing as well. I think grading cornerbacks based on their interception total is about as bad as grading edge defenders on their sack total. I think it's just a really dumb way to evaluate players when they play over 600 to 1,000 snaps a year, and you're just whittling it down to 5 to 10 snaps a season is what's going to make or break whether, in your opinion, they had a good or a bad season. So I would expect the interception totals to still stay reduced because I think he's just going to be a better overall stickier corner and as he continues along across his career, for sure.
Yeah, and this allows the Cowboys to, play with his versatility this year as an outside guy, inside guy, without having to worry about, the price tag.
I think that's probably. Does this stop the whole don't put him at slot? He's not going to get paid as much. Oh my gosh! It's like, when can doing more make you get paid less? That was one of the talking points throughout the offseason that really hurt my head. It's like the reason why the slot corners that don't get paid as much are guys that play slot only, not the guys that can play outside and inside and just move in inside during nickel and sub packet situations. Daron Bland is the latter. He's not someone who is going to get a reduction in pay because you put him in at slot in your sub packages. It's because he's playing outside in your base. So I never understood that really talking point throughout the offseason. So I'm glad that I was kind of, that he got paid. We don't have to talk about that. We don't have to worry about where you're going to put him and how that affects his monetary value moving forward. We can kind of just play him where the team needs him most.
I like him more in the slot personally. I think he has the physicality and the short area quickness to be able to work in the slot pretty well. And I expect to see him in the slot on Thursday night. We'll get into that here in a bit. But especially when it talks about him stepping up in the run game. I think Donovan Wilson is probably the only defensive back that you can make a case that is probably better or has a more of a knack in the run game in the defensive backfield than Daron Bland. I mean, you love that type of guy to be able to step up and make those plays in the backfield, and it's a luxury for the Cowboys.
And he's not afraid to take on blocks. He's not afraid to get his nose dirty. He's not shying away from contact. It's really important that these slot guys when blocks are coming their way, they can't shy away, give ground. You have to maintain that ground so that the spacing in your run defense stays consistent and so that you can minimize the gaps and holes that running backs can run through. And Daron Bland is kind of the epitome of that, in my opinion, as a smaller slot corner or cornerback in general.
Diving into a little bit more specifics of the contract itself, because when this came down, there was a lot of fans saying that this is a bad deal for the Cowboys, that, a guy coming off of missing 10 games last year is getting paid the 6th most per year for cornerbacks around the NFL. He's basically in line with Patrick Surtain, who won the Defensive Player of the Year last year. Yes, I get it, whatever. Looking at his deal, $50 million guaranteed, 49 of that guaranteed money is front-ended into the sense that all that money comes before March 2027. So you have the 25 season and the 26 season. Those are really the 2 seasons that you are tied to Daron Bland with this contract extension. So in essence, you're only going into 1 new year of the deal until there's even a potential out. I mean, sure, they would take on some dead money if they were to split from Daron Bland in 2027 if things were to really go wrong. But with the way this contract is set up, they have the flexibility to do that. So I think that's something important to keep an eye on. It's very similar structure to how the Osa Odighizuwa contract was structured, front-ended with guarantees, and then it kind of moves on to a 2-year, $36.3 million deal after that. So it is a team-friendly deal at the end of the day. Even if it does not work out for Daron Bland over the course of the next couple of years, the Cowboys still have some flexibility to be able to move with it.
That's why we pay you the big bucks, Nick, because I am a cap and contract ignorant. I am totally dumb when it comes to anything cap and contract, and I really don't understand.
Me and you both. Honestly, everybody is. I don't think
the fact that you can bring that kind of coherent analysis about the contract and what it means, and kind of detail for the listeners about how it's structured and everything is fantastic, and it makes me even more excited about the contract. The fact that it's not something that is going to be an arbitrage for the team, after 2027.
And I think if you listen to, which honestly, we can go ahead and dive into the next topic because this kind of ties into it with Micah Parsons. This is my first time being able to address on the show, my thoughts on the ordeal. I'm honestly going to spare you my comments and spare you everything because it's been ad nauseum at this point. But I do want to mention, I think this is probably, listening to David Mulligetta's comments this morning on First Take, it's probably a big reason why there was a disagreement between David Mulligetta and the team when it came to the contract. Because with the way the Cowboys like to do these extensions, they like to front end these guarantees. And they like to do it even more so since the Terrence Steele and Trayvon Diggs deals have come down. Because if they front end those guarantees, and let's say what happened with Trayvon Diggs happens with, said player, where ACL injury happens, comes back, another knee injury, then they have a way to get out of that without having to foot so much money in the guarantees. If you look at and you understand David Mulugeta's, bargaining chip and what he likes to get for his clients, and you see how the Packers deal is structured, it's the complete opposite. The guarantees carry well into 2029 for Micah Parsons under this new deal with the Packers. He gets $47 million per year. I think he probably would have – I know he would have taken less to stay with the Cowboys, but I think the guarantees would have had to be much different. The more that comes out about this situation, the more I start to realize how much more in disagreement that they were about very specific parts of the deal. Because you can agree, say, hey, 5 years, $40.5 million, we can agree on that, and that's going to be our contract. But there are so many different parameters that go into the guarantees, to the void years, and how that benefits the team and the player. And I think these two sides were so far apart the more that we get into this. But enough contract talk. I think this deal overall, talking about the trade itself, getting Kenny Clark in return, which we're going to dive into here in a second. I said this was an 8 or 9 win team before the trade. I still feel like this is an 8 or 9 win team. John?
I mean, one thing about the cap and the contract thing that I kind of saw from the Green Bay people is that all it came down to was Green Bay was down to change their philosophy on contracts for Micah Parsons, where the Cowboys weren't. From everything I've read from the Packers beat writers and the Packers bloggers and everything, is this is not how the Packers usually structure contracts either. This is very different from how they usually structure their contracts. And the fact that the Packers were willing to bend and do that for someone of Micah Parsons' caliber allowed them to get the player, whereas it seemed like the Cowboys weren't, unfortunately, as much as, that pains me and pains many to say, but it seemed like that is truly the case. The thing that bothers me most is kind of the PR spin that the Joneses have put on it since the move was made. The fact that it was about, we do this to stop the run. It's like, oh, you just found out that you got to stop the run 1 week before the season starts, huh?
Thank God.
Screaming it the entire year that you need to invest in the nose tackle, the defensive tackle positions, get better talent at linebacker, but you're out here signing the Kenneth Murrays of the world, Jack Sanborns for 1 year, whatever million. It's just they don't line up. It makes no sense. It's just PR spin, and it honestly irritates me more. But as far as you're saying about the win total, I do think this reduces the win total because the Cowboys defense, I think, is going to struggle more. We said that stat ad nauseum about how when Micah Parsons is on the field for the Cowboys since he entered the league, the Cowboys have had the best defense by EPA per play. When he's off the field, the Cowboys have the second worst defense by EPA per play. And you cannot convince me that without him every single play that their defense is not going to take a downward spiral a little bit from where they would have been if they haven't. Now, does that mean they're going to be as bad or worse than last year? No, because he missed 4 games last year too. And the Cowboys, I do think, have better talent overall on the defense outside of the Micah Parsons part. They would have had, if they had him, they would have had a more talented defense that would have allowed them to play better defense than they would have had last year. So I expect that we're going to see similar defense to what we saw last year, and that's going to make things extremely hard on the offense. And if the offense isn't hitting on all cylinders, I hate to be this pessimistic because I kind of look at it more from a fan's perspective when I'm talking wins, losses, but I mean, if they get over 500, that should be considered a win, in my opinion, for what the talent and the way the team is structured. I mean, if they get 9-10 wins, the offense was balling. Dak Prescott, George Pickens, CeeDee Lamb, Jake Ferguson, Kevontae Turpin, Javonte Williams, everybody was just balling, in my opinion. The offensive line, in my opinion, I think the lack of talent at the tackle position is going to prevent the offense in general from being as potent as it needs to be to carry the Cowboys to a 9 or 10 win season.
Yeah,
so
the reason
I would say like 6 or 7 wins.
The reason I kind of see it as as an equal setting is because the pass rush has been up here for the last 5 years, easily. The run defense has been here. And I think with this trade, it kind of just does one of these. and you're kind of right back where you were, except you just lost a really talented pass rusher, but you also gain a wealth of experience in the run game. I am under the belief, and this is kind of my personal defensive philosophy, is that if you can stop the run, everything else kind of falls into place. Because if teams are forced to be able to put the ball through the air, I think this group is talented enough to still get after the quarterback. It is not going to be how it would have been with Micah Parsons. Do not get me wrong. I understand that. The quarterback pressure production going back over the course of the last 4 years, it's unreal. The pass rush win rate, unreal. That's something you cannot replace. But I think this group is good enough to still be disruptive in the backfield as long as this team can stop the run. Now, if Kenny Clark comes in, he's still banged up from what he was dealing with last year. There's not a huge improvement in the run game. Holy shit, man, you better watch out. I mean, this is not going to be good for this defensive unit. It's going to put a lot of stress on the secondary, a banged up secondary at that, and it's not going to be a good final conclusion. But
people don't. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
And people don't realize, though, that losing Micah Parsons does hurt the running game as well.
It does, and that's true.
He is a good run defender. People get so mixed up trying to act like he's terrible against the run and just run at him, and that is the way you mitigate him. I mean, I just posted a stat this morning from PFF that I believe Micah Parsons ranked 24th out of 115 eligible edge defenders who played at least 100 run defense snaps last year in positively graded play rate. And that just shows you that he's making plays against the run as more than most of the edge defenders in the NFL. And now you're going to have to go to a Dante Fowler. Who have y'all seen Dante Fowler defend the run in his career? It's not pretty. Have y'all saw Sam Williams? He's very undisciplined. Donovan Ezeraku, we all love him, but he's a rookie who's undersized as well, and expecting him to be as good as Micah Parsons is probably foolish. So it's like I don't like the way that Micah is being painted by a large swath of this fan base because he's not here anymore. It's really just kind of fitting in a narrative that they want to fit, to make the trade make sense in their head so that they can sleep at the end of the night and not be super mad. It makes no sense. And I really like Kelly Sheehan's comment on the comment things about the answer to our problems is to add run stopping weapons, not to remove one of the best pass rushers and overall defensive players in the league. And I think that epitomizes what I'm trying to say.
Now, overall, I don't want this to be misconstrued because I think the trajectory of this team is worse without Micah Parsons, obviously. But I think the return on this trade still remains to be seen because you have these 2 first-round picks. Now, if you go and you use these 2 first-round picks on, a Tyler Smith and a Zach Martin, just talking out of my ass here, then maybe you look back and it's like, you know what, this probably worked out for both sides. Or they go out and they draft Mozzie Smith and Taco Charlton, and things are down the gutter. And it's easily the worst trade that this franchise has ever made.
The only thing that I would say for that is you're more likely given if we think that they're going to be drafting post 20, it is more likely that you're not going to get 2 players that equal up to Micah Parsons than it is likely that you will. So in that how it paints it in my mind, the likelihood doesn't make me optimistic about it. But of course, it's a possibility that they can grab another Hall of Fame potential caliber player with one of those 2 picks or both of those picks or whatever have you, or grab one Hall of Famer and one that's going to be cut in 2 weeks or in 2 years, whatever. There's so many different possibilities that it's like everybody's been posting that famous Family Guy meme about, it. A boat's a boat, but the mystery box could be anything. It could even be a boat.
Exactly. There was another one that I saw where it was like, I have $80 million here, and I'm going to use it all $80 million on scratch offs. And that's kind of what you're doing here with these 2 first-round picks. Is you're hoping that they are late teens at the best to where you can get a really solid player. But let's look at this Packers roster and understand one thing. This team is not going to be having a pick in the late teens unless an injury happens to Jordan Love, which we do not wish upon him. I mean, it's going to be a late pick. And so, do you maybe use that first round pick to go get a player right now? Honestly, it's not a bad idea. They have $42 million in cap space. They could get pretty much anybody they want.
And I honestly think that's one of the best ways to find value is using these picks to get, established players who can contribute right away. It's not like you're not taking it's less unknown. The unknown factor isn't as big as it would be for grabbing a rookie player. And so I wouldn't be opposed to, trading it for, so I don't know who, I haven't looked at all, who could it be, but I would not be opposed to trading it for a player or two, to try to improve the team immediately.
Now let's dive into our John Owning sicko mode segment here. Kenny Clark, the new addition here in Dallas. Overall thoughts on Kenny Clark for me at least are, coming off of the 2024 season when he was battling injury, at least to me, it looked like he was asked to play more laterally in 2024, whereas in his previous 8 seasons, he had this attack upfield mentality. I think a lot of things were playing against him in 24, but that's what we have to judge off of. That's what we have coming out of it. I believe it was 1.5 sacks that he had in 24 compared to 7.5 sacks in 23. So that's quarterback production, but as far as run game production, he has been pretty consistent even when he was dealing with the broken toe last year. But John, you got some plays here. Let's dive into them.
Yeah, obviously going first is his first we're going with his pass rush ability, and I think something that has been overlooked is he can be a really good pass rusher. I think the part of his game that was hurt the most by his toe injury last year was his pass rush ability, because he lost the ability to cross face, to threaten both edges of offensive line, and that kind of caused him to rush down the middle and use just his power, because he is an incredibly powerful player. But something that I love about his pass rush ability is his ability to attack leverage points, as you see here. He does a really good job of when he initiates contact. He will use what I call a Y grip. We call it a Y grip break in jiu-jitsu or in judo, where somebody has their hand latched on you and you use your Y grip break to break it off and stuff it to your hip so that you can attack the edge and create pressure. And I think he does a fantastic job of that. Tons of his pressures last year and in years before came because of his ability to strip grips using that grip breaks strategy and attacking those leverage points, whether it be the wrist or the elbow. And another thing that he does fantastically well, especially in the seasons where he wasn't injured, is use a threaten of speed or a stutter step to one side and before clubbing to the other to cross face and arm over to generate. This is a very good example against the Seahawks here about how he set him up like he was going to go outside, and then he clubs and crosses face and goes arm over, gets vertical to generate pressure. Really beautiful job. And you see the kind of power to run through the chip from the running back as well. He's just obviously, and all the talk from Jerry and everybody was that he's going to improve the run defense, but he's also going to bring a massive improvement to the interior pass rush, because the Cowboys have gotten basically zero from their A-gap defensive tackle, nose tackle, pass rush production. And he's someone, and I think, we're going to get to the Eagles game later, but I think Kenny Clark is someone that you can use to move around the formation of those 3 interior linemen to create matchups that you think that you can exploit against some of these, I won't call them bad interior offensive linemen from the Eagles, but inferior to their tackles for sure. And I think Kenny Clark can be kind of a movement piece that you can use to generate pressure in those situations. And now moving on to the run defense stuff, the run defense, man, as someone who's been, advocating for the Cowboys to get a nose tackle, a 300-plus pounder that can really defend the run, this was a godsend, because this man, he has the thing that blew my mind most when I watched him, because I have studied Kenny Clark intermittently throughout his career, but I've never done like a full deep dive in depth into what he's done, is the range that he plays with as an interior run defender. Even though he's an A-gap defender or a B-gap defender as a 3 technique, he can make tackles way outside of his responsibility, as he did here against the Vikings. He can give you a little bit of that sideline to sideline chase ability that someone at 300-plus pounds can chase the ball like that. That is such a huge help to your defense, and that's going to limit some of the voids in the cutback lanes that running backs have had in previous seasons against the Cowboys defense. I think that's going to be a fantastic addition to the Cowboys run defense. And
let me ask you a quick question.
Yeah, of course.
So in Green Bay, you look at his snap counts, and there was a heavy split between what he was doing at 3 tech and 1 tech. Honestly, more of what he was doing at 3 tech, at least from my eyes, in that 100%. Green Bay. What are the challenges he's going to face, if any, of being asked most likely to play 75% of his snaps at one tech for the Cowboys?
I think the one thing is, obviously, when taking the double team factor is going to be the most important thing when you're playing that nose tackle one technique position. And he does a really good job against vertical doubles and combination blocks where they're trying to create vertical displacement, on duo runs and down blocks on power runs, those type of things. And he's really, really, really strong in those situations. He really holds up well. He sets that anchor turn. He puts out his kickstand, locks onto his primary key, throws his hip into his constraint key, and he does a really good job with that. Where he has a little bit of an issue is where he faces zone teams that can get him moving laterally, and he struggles to really maintain gap discipline consistently against those lateral, more combination double teams. He can get moved a little bit, and the adjacent gap, meaning the gap right next to him, can get widened a lot, to the point where it's really tough for one player to fill a hole that is two gap sizes big. And that can happen to him at times. But again,
that's
as we see here against the Vikings, he gets kind of washed down. That's something that happened. I wouldn't say it happens every time, but it happens more consistently than you would like from someone with his talent, his size, his ability against the run, his hand technique and stuff. But I think the thing that is going to allow him to do well still at nose tackle is just the strength and his power in his hands. He consistently creates knockback on contact when he's taking, especially one-on-one. He is a dynamic run defender against one-on-one blocks because of his abilities to stack, shed, create that separation. And then he does a really good job peeking one way and going the other. Yeah. So it's just, he's really strong there. And he has the get off quickness and the speed to shoot a gap if necessary, if need be. And we know that's something that Eberflus really likes to have a clip on there at the goal line where he's able to slant, shoot the gap, and make a play. Really fantastic stuff. Our man's Caden, I know he's pulling it up right now. Right here against the Lions, you'll see he swims over, slants, gets into the backfield, and makes a stop in a key goal line situation against a very big running back in David Montgomery, who's really good on the goal line. And we know how great that Lions offensive line is, especially on those downhill blocking schemes. So being able to see stuff like that from Kenny Clark, I think, is really fantastic. And I understand why the Cowboys front office and coaches were so excited to get, somebody like Kenny Clark into their interior run defense, because he's going to make a big difference. Now, is it a big enough difference to warrant trading Micah Parsons? Hell no. But he's definitely a great addition. And as someone like me who has been advocating for them to invest in a nose tackle, someone who can really, really be a difference maker at the position, it's going to be fantastic seeing him there. And I hope that he can just continue to build on his success there. Because I think last year, a lot of the reduction in production that he had was due to having that toe injury that he suffered in the very first game of the season. I think now fully healthy, from everything I heard from my Packers friends and sources and beat reporters who were down there on the ground, seeing him at camp and everything, the first step quickness is back. You're not seeing kind of the limits that the toe injury had on him. He's playing kind of like the 2024 Kenny Clark, the 2023 Kenny Clark in training camp and everything. So I am really excited to see what he can do for the Cowboys.
Yeah, just backing up what John said, healthy camp, and the expectation is that he is fully healthy, cleared his physical by many, many miles. And that toe was something that was specifically asked about. He has cleared those concerns. So that's certainly positive going into the year. Grade him as a pass rusher, grade him as a run defender, A, B, C, D, E, F.
As a pass rusher, I would give him a solid B. Because I think to be an A rusher as a defensive tackle, you got to be like a Dexter Lawrence or a Chris Jones. That's
going B, B minus, B plus, or just B.
I would just give him a solid B. And then as a run defender, I'd give him a B plus, because again, he's not Dexter Lawrence. Like Dexter Lawrence is the epitome of an A in both rushing the passer and defending the run. That dude just is phenomenal. So I think that Kenny Clark is just a slight tier below that, but a slight tier below that still is a big difference.
That's still damn good
in both facets. So I think it's really good to see, and it's gonna hopefully pay really big dividends for the Cowboys' run defense and interior pass rush.
It has to pay dividends, because if it doesn't, this is going to look like a stinker of a trade very, very early on, even more stinky than it kind of looks like on the surface as of right now. But But he'll get his first shot against this talented Philadelphia interior offensive line on Thursday night. We'll go ahead and dive into previewing this game. It's crazy in this stat here that Caden put at the bottom, and it is wild to think about that despite how many years Jalen Hurts has been in the league, with injuries with him and with Dak Prescott, they've only played 3 times. Dak holds the 2-1 advantage. There's going to be some really fun aspects to see in this game on Thursday night. For me, seeing this offensive system get thrown out onto the field, from watching it at training camp, from understanding more and more about Brian Schottenheimer's offensive mind and offensive system. I have a piece coming out on the 4-Star Telegram tomorrow, quick plug, on his coaching mind and how it has developed over the course of his career. I am excited to see what the passing concepts look like. I think he's going to have some pretty intricate philosophies that he's going to throw out there early and often. It was funny because we were talking to Dak Prescott off the record in the locker room today, and he was kind of talking about how, you know, it's always a fight with Philadelphia, but you have to be patient with them because of how simple they are defensively. They're not asked to do a whole lot by Vic Fangio. You know, they stick to their keys, they stick in their assignments, and they don't really move off of them. They have really elite nonverbal communication to communicate from sideline to sideline, and they stick to their guys. But when they do make mistakes, you have to be able to take advantage. And so, you know, Dak was talking about how you have to be such a patient offensive player playing against this defense because you could try to take a shot on them, but they'll still remain sound. And you could take the shot on them whenever they do finally have a little fuck up in the middle of a game. And I think, you know, that's going to be something to see. But I do wonder if Shotty maybe tries to take a shot early on. If he tries to throw a haymaker in that first quarter, he's got the weapons to do it. He's got George Pickens. He's got CeeDee Lamb. He's got Jake Ferguson, Kevontae Turpin. The offensive weapons are abound here on this offense. And it is – I've said this a couple of times – it is going to be a disgrace if this team does not finish top 5 offensively in yards this season. They have the personnel to do that, and it would be a shame if they did not. The offensive line, I don't really have a ton of questions about them. I have a question about Tyler Guyton. You know, is he ready despite not having the reps that he expected to have at training camp? But I think this system is going to benefit a guy like Terrence Steele. I don't have any concerns about Tyler Booker. I think he's going to have rookie ups and downs, but I think he's going to be a solid pro from day one. And then Cooper Beebe, I think he's going to have a good year as well. We've talked about him, and Tyler Smith is Tyler Smith. But looking at this game, for me, it's the Cowboys offense versus the Eagles offense. Which team can score more points? I would take the over in this one.
Yeah, you know, just kind of sticking with the as you kind of painted the picture of the Cowboys offense versus the Eagles defense, the things I'm going to be looking for are how much is the scheme making it easier for Dak Prescott and company to create production? What is going to be the shift in pre-snap and at the snap motion rate? You know, what's that going to be this year with Shotty? Yeah. What's going to be the under center play action rate under Shotty? Yeah. What is going to be the alignment? Are they going to use condensed formations? Are they going to be spread? Are they going to, when they are condensed, are they going to be using things like split releases? Meaning if you have 2 receivers lined up next to each other, are they going to split the release? So the inside guy's going to go outside, the outside guy's going to go inside to create issues against man coverage and things like that. I think those are the, you know, from a statistical point of view that we can look at immediately after the game. I think those are going to tell a big story about what we're going to see from this offense and how successful is it going to be for the entire season. Because we saw in past seasons with McCarthy, the first 6 to 8 weeks, they weren't using motion. The Cowboys offense was very static and it was very unimpressive. But then when they opened up the offense, used more play action, used more motion at the snap, magically the efficiency of the offense improved. So is Shotty going to, you know, take those past failures and not make those same mistakes that they made in the past and kind of just fold that into the offense from the jump this year? I think that's going to be very important. And then another thing that I'm going to be, you know, kind of locked in on as much as I can during the game, because I'm going to be working at PFF at the same time, which is going to be tough, is what are they going to be doing for Tyler Guyton or Nathan Thomas, whoever's playing left tackle? How are they going to provide him help in pass protection? Are they going to slide the offensive line his way to give him help? Are they going to use a tight end? Are they going to use a running back to chip block? Are they going to do a big mix of all three, or are they going to trust their guy to be out on an island and kind of use Dak Prescott to use quick game? You kind of put it on Dak's shoulders to feed his people. I think given the prowessness of guys like George Pickens to beat you deep, I think it would be wise to use, a hard under center play action passing game where you are slanting that offensive line, giving them more time so you can hit those deep shots to guys like George Pickens or CeeDee Lamb, or maybe even a Kevontae Turpin up the slot down the seam, things like that. I'm going to be very, very interested in kind of those 3 or 4 facets of how the Cowboys offense attacks this Philadelphia defense.
Yeah, I think the key, at least for the Cowboys offense here, we're going to learn early and often about Javonte Williams, because it's going to be incumbent upon them to be able to establish the run early, to get more bodies in that box for Philadelphia. They run a pretty heavy cover 6 scheme. They'll run quarters on one side, and on the side that they trust the most, which will most likely be with Quinyon Mitchell, they'll have cover 2 on the other, and it's going to be a simple system for them as far as pass defense goes. They have to get another guy in the box. Talking about the Cowboys offense, they have to force a body to crash down, because if they can force a body to crash down as early as late first quarter, that's only going to open up the passing offense in the second half. It's going to be big time for them. If I'm expecting something here, I'm expecting heavy usage of these backs early on the first couple of drives to try to get a body up front. If they can't do that, then I wonder how they counter with that. But that's going to be my early first takeaway.
And the thing about, great call out that they play a lot of quarters in cover 6 with those 2 high shells. The thing is, when you play those defenses, the safeties have to be involved in the run fit, running the alley, so they're not aligned as deep as they would be for, a cover 3 or just a traditional cover 2 or a Tampa 2 defense. They're not going to be playing as deep, so they're going to be lined up to 10 to 12 instead of, 12, or instead of 14 to 16. And that means that you can beat them deep. You can have you're going to have opportunities one-on-one deep, especially when you use combination routes like a post, like a deep post plus a go route. The post is gonna occupy the safeties underneath, and the go route's gonna go over the top, or a post with a basic underneath. Things like that. These kind of combination routes, you can create one-on-one opportunities deep against those kind of defenses. So if the Cowboys want to take deep shots, if the pass protection holds up, they're gonna be there. They just have to execute those opportunities when they come about.
Yeah, who's the liability in the secondary for you for the Eagles?
It's going to be whoever's starting opposite Mitchell. They're saying it could be Keely Ringo or it could be Adoree Jackson. I think that's the guy that you're going to attack. That's the 100%. That's the guy you want to attack, and you want to attack him deep.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating to see how they line up and how they use that matchup. Are they going to take Quinyon Mitchell and have him follow a guy like CeeDee Lamb, or are they going to stay, true to putting Quinyon Mitchell on the boundary and letting him work opposite of the rest of the action? And he continues to pick up different matchups, and CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens and whoever else they will line up against him. It's going to be a chess match early and often. I think the benefit that Schottenheimer has here is that there's very little tape on what Vic Fangio can expect from this offense. And it's going to allow them to have some advantages early. It's just about them taking advantage of them, and that's going to be the thing that you hope this offense can get out to a hot start. Because if they can't, then I think they might fall behind early, and that's a tough place, a tough environment, a tough game to fall behind early. Let's flip it over to the other side.
Can't let Jalen Carter take over.
Oh my God, absolutely not. It's going to be a huge test for Tyler Booker here in week 1. He's going to have to put his money where his mouth is. At his introductory press conference right after he was drafted, he was asked, who are you most excited to go up against? He said Jalen Carter. So this is going to be really fun to see that matchup, come to fruition. Let's flip it over to the other side of the ball. The Eagles offense needs no introduction. Saquon Barkley entering the year as defending rushing champion. It's tough to uphold that production, but we're going to get an good early look at what this run defense does look like under Kenny Clark. Is there anything you can really expect from him? Or let me phrase it like this. Do you expect Kenny Clark to be able to come into this situation with 100% knowledge of the system and be able to apply, what we expect from him throughout the year? Or is it maybe a little bit unfair to expect 100% out of Kenny Clark since he literally just got here 5 minutes ago?
I think it's probably unfair to expect 100%, but can he give you 85 to 90%? For sure. The good thing about defensive tackles and defensive linemen in general, they don't have a big mental load when it comes to learning things. It kind of varies team by team, but for a team like the Cowboys, especially when they're a one gap defense, get up the field, it is meant to take the thinking part out of it. Just get upfield, pierce your gap, pursue the ball, play with a high motor and those type of things. The things that I'm interested in are going to be how they isolate Kenny Clark in passing situations to take advantage of some of the weaker parts of the Eagles offensive line, specifically somebody like Tyler Steen. I would not be surprised if you saw in passing situations now. We're talking about like second, third down, 7+ type area.
Yeah.
I would not be surprised if you saw Osa Odigizua as the one lined up in the A gap and Kenny Clark the one lined up in one of the B gaps against one of these guards, preferably Tyler Steen, because I think his power, his quickness can be a very big mismatch to where he can get you a couple of, high leverage pressures, sacks, QB hits in those situations. I think in this game where obviously the run defense is going to be key, I think the way that the Cowboys can put this in their favor are big time sacks and pressures in key opportune times. And I think the guy who has the best opportunity to do that is Kenny Clark, specifically lining him up against Tyler Steen at guard.
Moving to the secondary, Trayvon Diggs it's going to be a game time decision for him if he actually does play. He has fully participated in practice each of these last 2 days, but I think it's going to be more of a situation of, do they feel like he is ramped up enough to where he's ready to be thrown out there in that environment and perform? If he cannot, then you have a hodgepodge of different corners that you're going to have to throw out there.
Isn't it crazy, like the difference in how you feel the Cowboys secondary matches up with the Eagles offense just based on if Diggs plays or not? Because if Diggs is playing, I mean, obviously I don't feel phenomenal, but I feel pretty good about the Cowboys secondary being able to stay up with those Eagles receivers. You got Diggs and Bland taking on A.J. Brown. The other one can take Devonta Smith. And then I'm not really worried about the other weapons from the Eagles offense. At least I don't think that there's someone who can really gash you in a way that is consistent and makes it and is like takes over the game type of a way. The way that, an A.J. Brown or a Devonta Smith, if they get going, it's going to make life hell for the Cowboys defense. So if Diggs doesn't play and you have an Booth lining up against one of those two guys on a lot of snaps, or we have our guy ready in the slot having to play Devonta Smith consistently, something like that, that's going to be matchups that I'm not really excited about. And it's going to take a lot from Eberflus to kind of manufacture ways, whether it be with pressure or with different combination coverages, to make life easier on them so that they don't have to, wear the brunt of playing man coverage against those fantastic type of receivers. So it's going to be, it all depends on where if Diggs is going to play, in my opinion, to how I feel how the secondary matches up with the Eagles receiving weapons. Not
to bring up another concern point, but we are not 100% sold on Kaiir Elam, correct?
Yeah, no.
And I think what he did
in OTAs too many times, my friend.
OTAs, what he did in training camp, admirable, absolutely. The ball production was there. I thought the cover skills were there. The one drive that he had in the preseason, there was a play that concerned me, and I wish I had thought about this pre-show because I would have pulled it up. But it was against the Rams, and they were playing soft coverage, and it was a quick 10-yard hitch. I forget who was on the receiving end of it. Could have been like Jordan Whittington, but Kaiir Elam just completely misjudged it and ended up being about a 20-yard gain. And I was looking at that, and I was like, ugh, that's a little concerning considering that is going to be one of your starting corners, no matter what happens in the health of that room. I only bring that up to say maybe don't be 100% sold on what Kaiir Elam can bring to the table, because he is arriving from a situation that he did not perform well in. His job was taken by a 6th-round pick. That 6th-round pick has since been paid up in Buffalo. Granted, he's outplayed what his draft stock was. Got to give Christian Bedford his credit. But also, Kaiir Elam did not. So I wonder if they do have early season issues with Kaiir Elam, how do they adjust for that? I'm not sure they have the personnel to adjust for that. So that's another concern point that I maybe do have going into the year. It's a lot lower on the concern list. Don't get me wrong. I think at the linebacker position, you have more concerns. Obviously, on the defensive line, you have more concerns. Safeties, you can make that case as well. I think that's still a point that needs to be brought up because it hasn't been brought up. And so that's one to think about.
If the Eagles can find a way to get A.J. Brown consistently matched up against Kyer Elam, that's a giant advantage in their department. So that's something that the Cowboys are going to have to figure out a way to mitigate, or when it does happen, use cone coverage, use bracket coverage, whatever you have to do. You do not want Kyer Elam one-on-one with A.J. Brown for too many snaps.
Yeah, and these corners, they're the X factor on this defense for this game specifically. Whether it's Trayvon Diggs playing or not, Kyer Elam's going to have to be ready to roll, and he's going to have to be, stepping up as far as, matching up with his guys and not allowing big plays. Daron Bland, same goes for him. I think you expect a certain level of play from Daron Bland, but, it's not a given by any means. The corners, that's going to be the biggest challenge that I think this team will face in week 1 at least. But overall, defensively, bend, don't break. That's got to be the message here, because they are going to bend against this team. This team is going to bend against the Eagles offense. It's going to happen. They just can't break. But I think it's going to be a shootout. Overall, looking at it, I think the Eagles win, but I think the Cowboys cover. I think the line is at 8.5 right now. I think this is a one-possession game. I think this is a game that the Cowboys are in the fourth quarter. But I don't see how the Eagles let this one get away on their home turf with that crowd in this primetime environment, with all the talent that they have on both sides of the ball. But I do think the Cowboys offense is strong enough. I do think it's dynamic enough with multiple weapons that they can at least keep this a game. John?
Yeah, crazy things happen in divisional round games. When you're playing in division rivals, anything can happen. I think obviously on paper, I think the Eagles are the heavy favorites, which is why they're an 8.5-point favorite, which is very big in NFL spread lingo parlance. But I just can't bring myself to pick the Eagles. Fuck the Eagles. Let's go Cowboys. Can't do it. I like it. We're going to keep our records throughout the season. We might have to figure out a bet for the end of the year on who has the better record. We're going to figure out something. Oh, geez. Because this is going to be tough, because you're going to be picking with your brain the entire time. I'm going to be like this, fuck the Eagles, go Cowboys. Let's go.
I love it. Let's dive into some mailbag stuff. I think Caden has some lined up for us behind the scenes, but if you have any questions, be sure to throw them in. We're going to answer here about 10-15 if we got the time. This is one I proposed on Twitter today. This is a great question from Jeremy Phillips. Which end has the most sacks at the end of the year? I also want to add on top of this, just which player has the most sacks by the end of the year?
I'm going to say that no player has double-digit sacks on the Cowboys, but I think it's going to come down to Dante Fowler or Osa Odighizuwa leading the team in sacks, and I'm going to go Osa Odighizuwa with 9 sacks.
9 sacks. That would be huge for him.
Yes, I think so. Wow. I think, I'm a big Osa Odighizuwa fan. I think that him having Kenny Clark next to him, someone else who can kind of take some of the pressure off of him, so that the offensive lines, that was the thing without Micah, that the offensive lines are going to put all their attention now towards like Osa and making sure that he's getting hard doubled on a lot of those pass protection. But with Kenny Clark in the fold, I don't think that that's going to necessarily be the case. So I would say Osa Odighizuwa with 9 sacks. I think Fowler is going to be somewhere around there with 7 or 8.5 sacks like that. And I really hope that Ezeraku is somewhere in the 6 to 8 sack range.
Yeah, give me Fowler, but I'm going to be rooting for Ezeraku. That's at least my take.
And let me just say, pass rush win rate more important than sacks. We want to see pass rush win rates above 10%. Cowboys only had 2 last year from guys that rushed the passer over 100 times. I would like to see at least 3 or 4 this year.
James Houston, maybe he gets into the mix. That'd be fun.
I mean, he's done it every year of his career. Every year of his career, he's had at least a 10% pass rush win rate. So that's a good call by you, Mr. Nick. If he can get active, that is the thing. Are they going to make him active?
That is going to be a big one. Will Tyler Smith get an extension by Thursday? There are talks going on between both sides. I can't really get a gauge on how serious these talks are at this point. I will say the Cowboys want to get a deal done. I don't see why Tyler Smith's side would want to get a deal done right now. That's just me. That's just me theorizing. I don't know anything to that end. But if you do not see a Tyler Smith extension until next offseason, just know that it was not by the fault of the Cowboys. The Cowboys want to get a deal done with Tyler Smith. They want to go into next offseason worrying about George Pickens, Brandon Aubrey, and those deals. They don't want to, and the free agents that are coming up going into 26. I know Tyler Smith is something that they want to get done early and often, and right now would be a great time. I don't necessarily have an answer if it'll get done by Thursday, but I know the Cowboys want to get it done by Thursday. How big would it be to get that deal done for you, John?
I think it'll be fantastic. I'll always pay early, get deals. That is, I think, the best strategy in today's NFL with the cap and everything. You just got to make sure you do it with the right players. And I think Tyler Smith has shown from his leadership, from his durability, from his play, that he's the type of guy that deserves to get an early extension. And I think I would be jumping for joy if the Cowboys were able to do that. These are the type of moves that the Cowboys kind of have to do given what they did, trading Micah Parsons in the cap space and the cap relief that provided them.
This is an easy one for me. Cowboys win the coin toss. Who are you sending out there first? I'm sending that offense out. I am 9 times out of 10. I am always defer to the second half guy.
Yeah, I was going to say defer.
I'm always especially on the road. I am the defer guy. This is the 1 out of 10 where I would send the offense out first, just because I think you have more confidence in your offensive system to score points than you do the defense to prevent points in this type of environment. But I will say, from a Schottenheimer perspective, I will be surprised if that scenario happens and he sends the offense out. He is a guy that loves to double dip at the end of the first half and then going into the second half. Almost always you can expect him to defer.
I like deferring because, especially on the road, because when you send out your offense first, that crowd is going to be ramped up and ready to go. They're going to be louder than they are any other time of the game, except for maybe if it's close in the fourth quarter type of thing. Whereas if they come out of the halftime, people are still coming back to their seats. They're not nearly as riled up coming out of half as they are to start the game. So I think just from taking the crowd noise out of it type of situation, I would defer.
Let's see what else we got up here in the chat. Caden, throw one up here for us. Okay, from Kelly, how confident are we that the Cowboys O-line can pass off pressure in real time against the level of schematic fuckery that Fangio will bring? I love this question.
I'm giving Kelly Sheehan the listener of the day with her good comments. This is another great one.
Yeah, go into it, John.
I'm confident for portions of the offensive line. I think that the part of the offensive line that's going to struggle the most is that Tyler Guyton side, because he hasn't been practicing. The continuity isn't as refined as it is at the other positions where they've been practicing passing off stunts in different games and different blitzes and identifying these different types of situations. Obviously, with a rookie Tyler Booker, there are situations where he can get mangled up and confused as well. So I would say those are the two kind of pressure points that I think I'm going to be keeping an eye on. And those are situations where I see they can struggle. But anything else, I think, like the stuff between Cooper Beebe and Tyler Smith, I think is going to be fantastic. And so this kind of the stuff that involves Booker and Guyton are the kind of situations where I think those are the spots where the Eagles can potentially find some success.
This is a fun one. Leafau or Murray, third eye spy on Hurts in this game. I would personally choose Leafau. What do you got here, John?
Anybody but Murray.
Yeah, I was going to say I don't know about Murray. I would take Leafau in this scenario. I think I would put Kenny Clark out there before I'd put Murray.
Watch him come out and ball. Watch Murray just come out and ball and just shove it in our faces, which I would love.
That would be funny. We would have a whole
kit all in the face. I'll take it all. I need it.
Pause. If they come out in 21 personnel, what's wrong with us having a 5-2 front?
I don't think it's an issue. We saw Eberflus use it intermittently during the preseason, which I thought was very interesting. Those odd fronts where you had the 1 technique, the 3 technique, 5 technique, and then you have a 6 and then a 9. So I think that's really interesting, and I think that's something that will be something to monitor for sure. And I wouldn't be surprised if you saw Eberflus use something like that, because you see a lot of defensive coordinators kind of using bigger numbers on the line of scrimmage to combat these teams that are really effective running the ball, especially like the Eagles, who run a lot of, zone reads, zone runs type of things where they're trying to create those horizontal stretches and create cutback lanes. So I think that's something that is definitely something to monitor. I would not be surprised.
another good one from Piston Broke. Should we be worried that he's talking about Tyler Guyton here, that Tyler Guyton hasn't practiced with the Cowboys very long?
Yeah, I think just because of what I said, the ability to pass off stunts, pass off games, identify blitzes, those type of things, the continuity aspect of offensive line play, I think that's the kind of the part that worries you, that he's only been practicing for 3 days.
He needed those reps in Oxnard. He needed them bad. And for him to not get them is super tough. I mean, the mental reps, for sure, it helps. And I am confident in saying that he took a step forward this offseason, both physically. The knowledge that he applied in the classroom has been, praised by so many people in that building. And it's not just blowing smoke up our ass either. I mean, they are excited about what Tyler Guyton can bring in year 2. You just wish he had those reps in Oxnard, because without that, it's tough. We'll answer a couple more. Ceviche, how do y'all feel about this year's squad going into week 1 compared to last season?
I do not remember how I felt going into last season. That is way too long. I've done way too many things that hurt my short-term memory in that time span. So
I'll say this. Let's put it to this perspective then. Coming out of last season, let's pretend the whole squad was healthy coming out of week 18 last year. Compare that roster to today's roster. Offense, obviously, I feel like is infinitely better. The defense, I feel like, is much worse.
Yep. Right there with you. And the thing is, they've done a lot to improve the defense, but when you lose someone like Micah Parsons, his gravitational pull is just so big, and what he did was such a big part of why the Cowboys defenses thrived when it did. I think it's impossible to lose someone like Micah Parsons and not take a step down defensive wise. Offensively, 100% agree with you. Really excited about the additions that they made, with George Pickens and whatnot. And I think the development of somebody like Kevontae Turpin is going to allow the offense to be even better, even more potent. So, yeah, I'm very excited about the offense.
I want to bring up this one as our last topic. Sorry, Caden. I know I'm hopping over you here. Chris says, is there a player out there that Jerry should use one of those Green Bay picks on to trade to make them better now? I will say this.
Not a running back. We are not trading first rounders for running backs, guys. I saw somebody say Jahmyr Gibbs in the chat. Throw that away, Matt.
Absolutely not. I think with the cap space that they have available, they have the freedom to do so. I will be keeping an eye at least who is on the trade block when trade deadline time comes around. I am keeping an eye on it because of that fact, because all of the cap space that they have available. They have over $40 million. It's the second most in the NFL, only trailing the New England Patriots. They have the freedom to do so. And I asked Shotty last week, I said, you have all this cap space. Do you plan on using it? He said, yeah. So we'll see.
Yeah, I'm interested. I don't really know players, but positions that would be interesting is, of course, grabbing like a defensive end type, an edge defender, but who thrives rushing the pass rusher. Now, I know a lot of people are going to say Trey Hendrickson, but I think he's too old to warrant trading a first-round pick for somebody who's entering probably the last 2 or 3 really strong years of his career. I wouldn't do something like that. So it would be tough. One guy who I'm really interested in, I say I don't know names, but one name I've heard ballied about that would be interesting is someone like Keon White from the Patriots, who is he's a little bit in the doghouse with the Vrabel scheme. Maybe he doesn't take a first rounder. Maybe we don't have to send these first rounders. That gives us the ability to send, maybe a second or a third if we can get that type of a deal, because Keon White's the same guy. He can play inside and outside. He's very effective. He's very impactful against the run in the pass. That would be kind of someone I would be very interested in to see if the Cowboys target. Or do you have any positions that you think that would be warrant for the Cowboys to kind of attack in the trade market?
If an injury happens to one of those tackles, a tackle, absolutely. Mm-hmm. I don't feel good about the backup tackle situation at this point at left or right. I mean, Nate Thomas had a great offseason, but I'm sorry. That's not a guy that you can rely on to start a game if Tyler Guyton goes down with injury. So that would be first and foremost. Secondly, though, if I'm looking at the roster, how it is right now, fully healthy, I would be looking at man, that's tough. I would be looking at the corner spot. If there's a corner that you can go out there and grab and you feel confident about, it gives you the flexibility to move on from Trayvon Diggs next offseason if you feel free to do so, and it makes up for any lapses that you might have with Kaiir Elam. So I'm a big believer in secondary talent and investing in that area. So I would probably look there. I wouldn't be heartbroken about a defensive line addition either at end or another tackle. I'd be completely fine with that too. But if you're asking me, I'd probably go get a corner. Well, John, this is a great episode, man. Let's do this again. Coming out of the Philly game, we are going to attempt to do a Friday episode. It's going to be a little tough. I'm actually driving back from Philadelphia. Long story there.
Bad for you, sir. It's bad for you.
It's going to be an interesting week. But starting next week and going throughout the rest of the season, we're going to have 3 episodes every week. That's at least going to be the goal, at least 2. We're going to aim for 3. And we hope to see you guys checking in with us. We're going to be going right around this time, about 6 p.m. Central Time. But we appreciate everybody for checking in. Piston Broke, Lou Fez, Marvel and Group, Ceviche, Kelly Sheehan, everybody that was active in the chat. We appreciate you guys. We'll see you next time. Stay blessed, everybody.